Okay, want to welcome you back to another training session. This is going to be on ethics. We're going to talk about Conservation District Board ethics. And again, ethics, whenever you talk about that, I don't know that you can really separate it from fiduciary, other than the fact that when you look at the fiduciary relationship, you have that, but the ethics is the law that sets the guidelines as to what you can do and can't do. Ethics is a moral principle that governs a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. We have in West Virginia, and I always carry a copy of it, the West Virginia Ethics Commissions and their open meetings laws. And it is important that we go back and we look at the history of it. The West Virginia Ethics Act was passed in 1989 during a great time of turmoil in the state. During his first inaugural address, newly elected Governor Gaston Caperton declared, "West Virginians are an honest and straightforward people, and they deserve the same from their public officials. We need to be able to trust each other, and the trust can only be achieved with a firm commitment toward ethical standards in government." Gaston Caperton called the legislature into special session, and the West Virginia's Ethic Act was created. Now, is that really important to us? It is, because basically that sets some of the standards by which we have to have our meetings. It is vitally important that each of us know that when we have a meeting, that meeting first has to be posted. You have to post it 3 days prior to that and post what your agenda is. If you're going to discuss an item, that item, if it takes a vote, must be on the agenda. If it's not, then that is not something that you can vote on in that meeting. Now, we talk about the reason behind that. Well, because there are several things that could come up. For example, if someone from the public shows up and you're discussing and getting ready to vote on something that wasn't there, they didn't have the opportunity to know what was in the agenda for, or what is the discussion about, if it was not on the agenda that was posted. So they have a responsibility too to know what is going on. The Ethics Act is a code of conduct for all public employees and elected officials in the state. It covers use of office for private gain, solicitation and gifts, names, likenesses, prohibited public contracts, voting, employment restrictions, financial disclosure. Are you aware that if you, as supervisors, go out to eat and there's more than one or two of you, you then are prohibited from discussing items that should take a vote, because then the public has not had the opportunity. It has to be something that you relate only in a public meeting. There are other avenues that you need to know. The Ethics Act controls on whether or not a supervisor can take monies from someone. You cannot take a gift from somebody that is valued higher than $25. If you just remember and carry that in your mind, $25 is the ticket. A private ruling was made because one of our projects that we have, one of our programs, was for ag enhancement programs to be offered to the general public in West Virginia. The supervisors were upset that some wanted to participate as well as the individuals. But if they were to participate, did they have an unfair advantage to vote for themselves to meet the criteria. So the Ethics Act takes care of that provision, and special provisions were made where a supervisor can participate, but he is determined to be qualified by the West Virginia Conservation Agency. That way it's outside of the realm of the Conservation District, and you're still in compliance with the West Virginia Ethics Act. You may not use public resources, including title or subordinate staff, for personal benefit. Now that's common sense. You're not doing this job because you want to benefit yourself. It is important that all of us realize that you cannot engage in nepotism, favoring or directly managing immediate family or relatives with employment or other benefits. You know, we put out a lot of money in programs, particularly in the agriculture enhancement program. And you cannot favor a family member over anyone else in that program because of the West Virginia Ethics Act. And also in that same consideration, a FOIA is something that anyone is able to do. A Freedom of Information Act gives them the right to, and we just recently had this come into play, they can ask for copies of those records, and they have the right to do that. A district is a political subdivision, and as such, you must comply with Freedom of Information Act request. If somebody requests, we just recently had one where someone requested what the supervisors were paid, and it came out of the state of Florida. But they have the right to put that together. And you, as a supervisor and as a district, must comply with that, or you're in direct violation of the law. Prohibited contracts, and this is something that we already talked about. You may not have financial interest in any public contract under their authority or control that is worth $1,000 or more per year. County officials are prohibited from having personal financial interest in contracts over which they have a voice or a control. And because of that, we have that provision where the Conservation Agency can take care of checking the ability for supervisor to meet the criteria and then vote on them being able to participate in that program. All elected and appointed officials, including district supervisors, must file annual financial disclosure forms with the Ethics Commission. And candidates for elected supervisor's office must also file campaign expense forms. You know, you have a responsibility to fill that out. Now, they will get it to you, but it is your responsibility to make sure that you get it and file it, because we do not want to bring down unethical actions on any conservation district. It's all there. It's all in an act. You can follow it. You can see what it is. If you have a question about an ethical standard or an ethical question, you can file that with the Ethics Commission and expect to get a letter back explaining what is or is not the appropriate action that you can take. There have been many, many ethics rules that have been checked. I have a list of many of them. Title 158 Series 01 is confidentiality. Title 158 Series 03 is purchases, sale of lease or personal property. And it just goes on and on and on. And if you have a question, that's how you discover whether or not you have the right to do something or not do it. But by and large, here is a copy of the Ethics Act. And I read that. Now, is it good reading? Yes, it is. Do I recommend that all supervisors carry it and know it? I do. Do they? I don't know. But I guarantee you that I always have that available. And when we're in a meeting, if something comes up that is questionable about that, I refer back to this so that we'll know. And I encourage each and every one of you to look at the Ethics Commission's Act, Open Meeting Law Training, and find out what it says so that you'll make sure that you are acting in compliance with all the laws of the state of West Virginia.